Are the Idaho science standards in their current form violating Idaho statutes? This is a very serious question to ask, and it was a question that was ignored during the adoption process. So let me take you through why I'm asking this question. If we take a look at Idaho's content standards in 4 subject areas: English language arts, math, science, and social studies, you'll notice that there are performance standards for each of these areas. A performance standard is a description of what students should know and be able to do once they have finished their course activities. None of these, except for science, includes content. Let me explain to you what I mean. I went to the State Department of Education website and called up the various content standards and took a look at these. I began with ELA and Math. I looked specifically at the formatting. Formatting is the organization and the wording. Now, one of the reasons we've been revising standards is that there is a push to emphasize more critical thinking and less memorization and more doing. So in looking at the standards, I wanted to see if the formatting, the wording, reflected that. So beginning with English language arts, I picked as an illustration for this presentation some reading standards for middle school. As I look through these, I was looking at the wording. So here we see cite, we see compare and contrast, analyze. All of these words explain what students should know and be able to do. These are action verbs. On to math. Use, interpret and compute, find. Again, describing what students should know and be able to do. Use. Onward to social studies and science. Again, I'm looking at performance expectations or standards, which are using words that describe what students should know and be able to do. So in other words, let's analyze the formatting in social studies. We have explain and use, analyze. Again, what students should know and be able to do. How about science? These are the proposed science standards that were the subject of so much controversy. You'll notice at the top of this page in blue, we have a label, Performance Standards. At the bottom of the page, however, in green is something called Supporting Content, and that, I believe, is our problem. So, back to the standards. Let's look at the wording. Construct, analyze. Nothing wrong here. These are very much in line with the wording and the organization that we've seen in ELA, math, and social studies. What's different about science is the supporting content. And this is where the problem is. In my opinion, legislating content might violate Idaho statutes. And the reason is that in Idaho, the adoption of curriculum is left to the local school districts. This has no business being in a legislated document, and it does not belong in the standards. However, this point was lost in all of the controversies surrounding the Idaho standards. Idaho Code, or in this case administrative rule, which does have the force of law, is pretty specific about what standards are. These are statements of what students should know and do. It furthermore states that students meet locally established standards with the state standards as a minimum. The problem with the Idaho science standards is the Idaho science standards aren't just the standards. They legislate content. As a science teacher, I have a problem with that because content is something that one interacts with in the classroom. It can change. Teachers may select content that meets the needs, the interests, the ability of their students. In no way should this be legislated. But furthermore, this is not the job of the legislature. This is something that takes place at the local district. So we need to go back and fix the Idaho science standards to make these in agreement with the other standards. Let's get the content out. Why didn't that happen? Well, the reason it didn't happen is we were so distracted fighting over what was in the document that we failed to realize that the document contained content in addition to standards. So let's fix that. Let's contact our legislatures and ask our legislators to remove the content and to rightfully restore the checks and balances between what our local school districts are supposed to do and what the legislature is supposed to do.